Welcome to the Tumbleweed Podcast, where we discuss an eclectic range of topics, including business, design, Texas culture, and everything in between.
We're two teachers that turned a side hustle into a nationally known apparel brand, and now we work with some of the biggest names in Texas. We strive to never stop exploring and continue to draw inspiration from our adventures.
So drift and explore or raise a glass. We're always ready to hang out and talk about the things that we love. So come roll with us as we drift and explore. Hey y'all, welcome back to the part 2 of our Tumbleweed Podcast. I'm Brian Wysong, co-founder of Tumbleweed TexStyles, and with us today we have Sharon, who oversees our customer experience.
Oh yeah, what's up guys?
And we got our, the man, the myth, the legend, co-founder and our creative director, Jeb Matulich.
Howdy, y'all.
But we're good to be back. We made it. We're here. And we are excited to talk about how we got started at Tumbleweed TexStyles over the last 10 years.
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to part 2. How was the weekend for you guys?
It was good. It was busy. I mean, we were both in different places. We had some events going on. I took a team down to Georgetown, Texas, and we had a little barbecue and Texas music event called Troubadour Fest. And so we hit that up over the weekend. It was pretty fun, a little hot, but the music was great and the barbecue was outstandanding. So it was a very good, fun weekend for us for sure. And then Brian was telling about where you are.
I was able to take our team to McKinney, just a skip, hop, and a jump right by Frisco at the TMR, Texas Music Revolution, with KHYI, one of our partners. We were a sponsor there and got to hustle some T-shirts, hats, but also just had a great time listening to music, being a part with Tubbs Brewery, one of our partners as well, and just having a great time. It was an incredible event.
That's always a fun event. I've been going to that for years. Even before we had the company, I'm a big fan of TMR, so I always put on a good show. So it's fun.
What bands were playing at Troubadour this year?
It was a great lineup. It was like John Bauman played, William Clark Green, Flatland Cavalry, and then they finished the night with Josh Abbott, and then all 4 of them came back and all played together as the Panhandlers. So I believe they've only played a handful of times, so it was pretty cool, pretty special to see those guys play at the end all together. So it was fun.
I'm a little jealous, maybe.
Yeah, it was
right.
great.
But it's crazy. The night before, I got to hang out with John Bauman as well.
All right.
Because he played in McKinney, and then he traveled down to Saturday to play in Georgetown, and we got to see Caitlin Butts, Wade Bowen,
Nice.
Hayes Carl. I mean, it was an incredible lineup as well.
Old Crow Medicine Show was there too.
Bam! Man, they put on a great show.
Oh wow,
they were rowdy. I love it.
They get after it. They got a good fiddle player, maybe some banjo. I don't know. I haven't seen them in a while, but yeah, they know how to throw down for sure.
Yeah. Of course, Sharon you actually had a weekend off.
Yeah, I did not get to at these events this weekend, but I still had a good weekend nonetheless. Went to some food trucks,
There you
so
go.
I can't complain too much. But that is so sweet. I know. So right now we're in the middle of summertime, and that is our big event season around here at Tumbleweed. It seems like just about every weekend we're on the road somewhere. Seeing some awesome bands, and again getting to drink good drinks and eat good food and stuff like that. But I know I didn't realize early on, when I was just a fan of Tumbleweed, or even early on the team, I just had no idea. I don't know, kind of just all the spaces that Tumbleweed is in, right? I didn't know all the avenues of where we sell, and I know many of our customers that shop at our Frisco store often just think that's it. Like, we just have this one store,
Right.
and that's all they know of. Or maybe online shoppers just know of the online store. They don't even know that we have a Frisco flagship store. So I'm glad you guys mentioned events, because that kind of leads us into just one of the things I wanted to get to talk to you guys about today is just some of kind of the sales avenues that we utilize here at Tumbleweed. Obviously, you mentioned events, but if you guys could just even expand on that, of like some of the first events you did with Tumbleweed and maybe how that looks different from then to now, as well as some of the other ways that we sell here through Tumbleweed.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean, I can start talking about events. I mean, I have some pretty fun memories of some of the stuff that we started with. I believe our very first event was in Salina, Texas, and it was very early on. It might have been like 2012. I think it was the Cinco de Mayo event, and so like we didn't even have a tent. And I think I borrowed a tent from Phil Taylor, one of my friends, PT Money. I got his tent, and it was just one that he had bought for the beach, and it was like a blue tent, and we set it up, and we literally had about 5 or 6 designs, I think, set up, and we had them hanging on little coat hangers, and the wind was blowing them everywhere, and we had like little stacks of shirts and some hand-painted signs and things like that. And
yeah, I don't know if you remember, I gave you, I went and got a board from, I think it was from my garage, and I gave it to you. I said, hey, paint our name on it.
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So we didn't have a sign. They were hand-painted signs, but they were kind of cool, little hand-painted signs. But we did that event. That was our very first one. I think we made a couple $100. We were happy as can be. I mean, it was Salina's blowing up now.
Yeah.
But back then it was still pretty small town, and so that was kind of our first event. And then we did some stuff with at McKinney Trade Days was another thing that we kind of started off early with.
I remember that. My wife at the time had a photography business, so she was able to work from home, so she was able to help me out. So I remember setting up on a Thursday, and I had to make a shelf. So actually, I don't know if you remember that, but I put together a little shelf. I had no idea what we were doing, and we rolled up and set up at McKinney Trade Days. I think it was set up on a Thursday, but it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event, and it was so hot. And I think we sold like 4 or 5 shirts, and we thought we were made a killing. At that time, we're like, man, we made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, but it was a pretty cool deal, both of those events, because when you think about our brand and how we got started, I think that is why our brand is so synonymous to living the Texas life, is because these were events with craft beer, Cinco de Mayo, junking. Jeb is junky trinkets. He is the man of all things junk, and I think that's synonymous with his name. And so live music and food and events have really put us in that community of putting on these events and selling our product and people having a good time. So, I mean, events was really how we got started because of that, just kind of weekend pop-ups.
Yeah, and it started small for sure. I mean, I think one of the first bigger events that we did was the Frisco Arts in the Square. It was kind of an event kind of put through like the arts of Frisco, and then also the school district, and then Frisco Square. I think that's really when we kind of started to see the momentum start to build with that, because by that time we had multiple shirts, so we could put out 15 designs, and there was, our name was starting to kind of get out there, and so we were able to kind of use social media to get people, local people into those events. And I really think that's kind of where we started seeing a good return on our time and investment with events, and then just the power of an event. I mean, because you think, oh, you sold a shirt to somebody, cool, they're going to wear it and you're never going to see them again. But we realized just how important it was for those people to take it home and like take that business card that we put in their bag and then like look us up online and start following us on Facebook or Instagram and then making a purchase online or buying something for friends. So that's really kind of where it.
And I think, experiential marketing is getting out, living an experience, but kind of a relational element to it. Is not only was this good for our customers, but events were always great for us. And I don't know if you remember Untapped Festival. That was an event that not only did we sell a lot of shirts, did we get to be surrounded by great music and great craft beer, kind of be part of the pioneers, Untapped Festival of craft beer in Dallas-Fort Worth, but we also got to meet our printer. And we got to meet other relationships of the guy that ended up helping us run events for the longest time.
Right.
House of Growlers.
Right. Jake.
And so, events have really been such a great part. And I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the most fun parts about it is allowed us as the owners to have an identity behind the brand. So it wasn't just like these are T-shirt that are sold online with the social media. People were able to come and talk to us and ask us questions. We got to tell the story. We got to learn more about the customers and what they really wanted, what they wanted to hear, what made our brand tick with them. And so I think for us, getting to tell that story really helped us develop those relationships, which allowed people to realize how authentic we were, hopefully kind of likable. Jeb's the likable one, and just have a good time at those events with our customers and not just sell the product. I mean, we were drinking with them, eating with them, hanging out with them. Do you remember that Untapped Festival? It was like one of the first. Your brother was there.
Oh, the Fort Worth one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first one.
And I remember we didn't have a tent, as you said. This was the first one we ever bought. We probably rolled up to Academy or Walmart.
Bought the cheapest one they had, for sure.
And at the end of the night, we were trying to take down our tent. It was dark. We didn't have any more lights. And we could not figure out how to get this tent closed.
Yeah, there's some latches or something that we were missing. And, like, I think one of the arms of the tent just, like, bowed out and, like, cracked. And we basically ended up just folding it up and just throwing it in the dumpster on the way out.
We went Office Space on that.
We did. We were so frustrated because it's like 1 a.m. and we couldn't get it done. But yeah, that was a good story for sure. The destruction of the tent.
Yeah.
But I think the Dallas Untapped Fest, the one we did the next year or the next season, that was the one where we both kind of looked at each other afterwards and were like, whoa, we could be onto something here. I mean, because we were slammed all day long and it was just like relentless. Like I never worked so hard in my life. It was like we were just making transactions the whole time, and we just like looked at each other like, "Wow, we're really, we're meeting a need. We're connecting with people. That we've got something here." I think that's when it really hit, event wise,
for sure. And I think events naturally tied into our other areas. You mentioned other avenues, and so of course we got our events, but then that really allows us to transition to online. Because people will learn about us or see our shirts, meet us at an event. We give them a marketing card of some sort and maybe a discount code. Then they go shop online. And hopefully from there, they continue to get, more established with our brand by selling online. If, depending on where you live. Sometimes people go to events, but they're from all over the country, all over the state. So it allows them to reconnect with us whenever they want. But we also have probably what has made us most successful is our wholesale. We have served probably close to, 2,000, 3,000, who knows what retailers since.
Yeah, over the years.
And I remember when we first got our very first retailer, Lisa, right?
Lisa.
And
shout out Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa. And
she's still one too.
Yeah, she's still one. And actually her son, Josh, works for us. Now it's funny how it all full circle, but she started selling our items in Grapevine and at the Frisco Mercantile. And I remember for us, it was more of a consignment than wholesale, but it rocked our world a little bit because we didn't know what we were doing. And she would order in bulk, and we realized, man, yeah, you're giving a discount, but selling 10 of one thing is better than selling one thing 10 different times.
Yeah.
And that really opened the door to us to realize, okay, there's a whole nother avenue to sell product via wholesale.
Yeah, I remember when she came to me, like her son Josh played soccer with my son Max. This is like when they were really young, and she was, she heard that we had started a t-shirt company and we'd started selling some shirts, and she was wanting to look at them, and she's like, oh, I might want some of those in our store. I'm like, oh, cool. We didn't ever even think of that. So yeah, she was definitely the stepping stone with that. And then I remember also, Brian was talking about our online presence, just our online store. We started getting inquiries. Someone would buy a shirt, give it as a gift, and it got in the hands of a couple people, I think down in South Texas. I think Green was one of the first ones. It's not Greenhouse. It wasn't Greenhouse at the time. It was a other owner before, and she was really on board with some of the stuff. And that was kind of our first bigger retailer that where we actually having to box things up and ship them down. To South Texas. Then we really started to have to rethink what we were doing. We're like, okay, we're not ordering enough. Started definitely learning how to play that game.
Well, and that was fun because it allowed me to finally become a salesman. And I loved turning that on that charm. And I remember hopping in the car and driving to like downtown McKinney. I drove between here and Round Top. My in-laws live in Round Top, Texas, and on the way you go through Hillsboro and then Waco, and then you would make your way through Giddings and finally find your way to Round Top. And I remember stopping in each step of the way. And Orison's in downtown McKinney became one.
Right.
And she's like, yeah. And I actually took in a box of items. I said, hey, here's 3 different designs that we have. Do you want them? She's like, yeah, I'll take them. I'm like, now? Yeah, I'll take them. So I just remember leaving them there. And then when I left, I realized, how am I going to get payment?
Yeah.
And then I remember they said something like, what are your net terms? I had no clue what net terms meant.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it ended up being net 15, where in 15 days they paid us back. And I went back, hopped on Excel, and had to figure out how to make an invoice. And same thing when I drove down to Waco, Spice Village, Giddings, we landed a retailer there.
Right.
And then I think that's when we started seeing a big time growth because people would find our products at these retailers in other parts of the state. And then they would find us back on Instagram or Facebook or our website and shop. And I remember noticing, man, why are people buying our stuff in Waco or here or there? It's because they were finding us at retail stores.
Right. We really didn't have any. I didn't at least have any kind of clue of like the impact that the retail stores were going to have. And I think we both were kind of caught off guard because we weren't expecting, like what Brian just mentioned, just like someone in Giddings, Texas buying our shirt and then looking at the tag and being like, oh, Tumbleweed, they have a store online. And then, then we start getting orders from random places. So it really did start to roll at that time. And and once one retailer gets it, other retailers get jealous and they're like, well, I want some of that stuff too. And so it just kind of kept growing from there.
Yeah, well, I have family that lives in the Houston area, and my sister specifically has several of our shirts and always noticed the red hem tag and how soft they were and all of that. And it wasn't until I started working here that she was like, wait a second, that's all the same place. But she just got them from her adventures in South Texas and just all over, where it's like you might buy it from 10 different retailers, and you have no idea until you look at the tag or the hem tag that it's all us. So
you nailed it, because the hem tag came really because of all the retailers that unknowingly were selling potential knockoffs, and people were assuming that was our product. And we have some very proud customers. And when they realized that wasn't our good, they would get frustrated. So that's where the hem tag came, was to allow people to know this was an authentic, real deal Tumbleweed Textiles item.
Yeah.
And so we mentioned our sales channels, of course, online, events, wholesale. We also have custom. We touched on it a little bit last podcast, but we do custom work at large scales. We don't do family reunions and weddings and those kind of things, but if it makes sense for our brand and it's a true partnership, we'll do collaborations typically with different Texas brands. I'm trying to think of a few. Whataburger.
Yeah, Whataburger. We've done some stuff with Dr. Pepper. Zavala's Barbecue. We've done some stuff like some of the early things we did were some of those like Royer.
Royers
and Round Top.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got and then we started doing some band merch for some different bands and things too. So yeah, that custom part is another little missing element, or another little cog in the machine, I guess you could say, that kind of keeps it going.
And the last one is Tumbleweed TexStyles Flagship Frisco store, which about 2 years ago we opened, which is funny because most companies start with a store, then they move to online and potentially wholesale. Yeah. We kind of went about this a wholly different way, where it was online, wholesale, and then our own store. And that was because we were high school teachers. We didn't have the time nor the ability to invest into a brick and mortar, but because of that store, it's opened up so many amazing opportunities for our brand, not only to have an establishment in Frisco, but to also force us to hire a lot of people. Because we realized I couldn't be, nor could he be at one place for 7 days all the time. And I was there pretty much every day for a year. Jeb would come up as much as he could on the weekends and after hours from school. But that really has opened a door for us, not just as a sales channel, but as an operational opportunity to grow as a company.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody loves to come in the store and like touch and feel and try things on. And like, we carry some things in the store that we don't have, or we don't have online, or we don't take to events. So it's always kind of fun to have that avenue too. And then, kind of getting back to events a little bit. I mean, the growth there just over the years, we're not using a small little dinky tent anymore. We've got like a big 10 by 20. We've got a couple 10 by 20 red tents, that are branded. We always put good signage up. I mean, we've got a van now. We got that after we got the store, because we realized we're going to need to start couriering stuff around, and then be able to get all these things to these events. So yeah, the growth with events has been crazy over the years. I mean, we've done things like Great Fests, Main Street Days, Arts in the Square, like we mentioned, Troubadour Fest, TMR, Murphy Beer Fest. So we're doing festivals all the time. Spring and fall are usually our big months. We're kind of starting to get into where we're easing them down because it just gets too hot in Texas. But yeah, definitely we've seen a lot of growth through the store, like for our events too. It's just been kind of a catalyst altogether.
Now, that red van, I'm not going to lie, has been one of the blessings to me because before I was using my vehicle to do everything, and Jeb and I would use both of our vehicles to take all this stuff in between events.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, there's kind of an important meaning or name behind that red van because we knew we had to name it, right? And podcast, the first podcast, I made a comment about the importance of Blue Goose, where we first came up with our company name, and that kind of ties into our red van. What do we call it?
We call it the Goose.
The Goose.
Yeah.
Aww.
So
And
some
some
that
people,
was a good fitting name since we started the company there. We needed something.
yeah, I think so. Some people think Maverick or Top
Yeah.
Gun or
Right.
no. The Goose from Blue Goose Cantina.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The place we took a shot in celebration for the name of Tumbleweed TexStyles.
Aw.
But it's really cool that van also is when people see it drive up and down 35 in different areas, the branding element as well. But it comes back to the team.
Mhm.
We've grown. I think we started off with Jeb and I, then my wife, Hillary. Carrie, Jeb's wife, has been a part of the team, helping out events and things. And Fred was one of our first artists that helped support the brand. But I think since then now we have close to, I think I counted 24 people that touch our brand on a daily to weekly basis. And that's all been the last 2.5 years. And I think Carissa, who's our store manager, was one of the first people we knew we needed. She had a background in merchandising and a background in retail experience. And Jeb had a great relationship with her husband, Brandon, who is now our events manager. You know,
All in the family. Yeah.
and so that helped instigate that need to expand our team and grow. And now we have you, Sharon.
Oh yeah.
And so overseeing our customer
Thank you,
experience.
Sharon. I used to get tired of those customer service emails. I don't know. They would get frustrating at times, I guess you could say. Brian was nicer than me sometimes.
Yeah, well,
Give him a free shirt. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but I don't know. I always felt they were lying sometimes, but
what's a weird experience that you've experienced or been a part of so far as overseeing customer service?
Oh gosh, a weird experience.
Yeah, just maybe a funny story, something random.
Well, this is something random. The first thing that comes to my mind is that I had a guy email, gosh, I don't know, a month or two ago, and he received the shirt as a gift, and he loved it. And he told me that his wife had sadly mistaken the size he was. He's no longer a medium like she thought he was, and so he needed to size up. And it was
we all?
right? common issue that happens, especially for gifts. And it was his daughter who had bought the shirt for him for his birthday or something. And anyway, I was looking him up and I was like, yeah, what's your daughter's name? I need to find her order. And sure enough, it was one of my very best friends who her dad lives in the Houston area. And I've never met her dad, so I didn't recognize his name. And, she's married, so her last name is different and all of that. But so I got to see my friend that night and be like, you'll never guess who I emailed with today.
wow, you're already earning your keep.
Your dad, there you go.
Making deals with, I like that. But I'll say about our growth with just the team members in general. I mean, and you hear this on all the business podcasts and the people that talk about business. I mean, you've got to. It comes a point where you can't do everything. Like you have to kind of choose. There's going to be things that you don't like to do,
Yeah.
and there's going to be someone that likes to do that task. And
Totally.
it's kind of like getting the right person, on the bus to do that job that maybe you don't care much about. Or you have to learn to delegate. There may be something that you do like, but it's just something that's taking too much of your time because there's something else that you need to focus on. And you need to delegate and give that job or give that position or that task to someone else. And so I think that's hard starting out, is just kind of like delegating tasks that we're used to owning between the two of us, like giving them to someone else because it's kind of our baby, so we want to make sure it's in good hands.
Yeah.
That's just goes with growth, I guess, but we had to kind of learn that.
Well, think about it. Our company's been around for now almost 11 years. We've talked about doing a podcast for 8.
Yeah, right.
And it took finally hiring this amazing person, McKenna, shout out, to finally get us to do this podcast.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, we knew we wanted to do it, but we didn't have the skill set of how to produce it or put this together. And definitely, I think a lot of our growth we've seen in the last 2 years is directly because of the human assets, the people touching our brand on a daily basis. And like Jeb said, many times there's tasks that we don't want to do or maybe we're not as good at, but there will always be someone out there willing to do that task or that is significantly better at us at doing it. And it's just a matter of learning to delegate. And I think the first key of leadership and ownership is learning to delegate down to those that are willing to be a part and catch the vision of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And I'm sure it lets you guys, too, be able to then focus on the things that you really like and that you really are great at, you know?
I hope so. You know, we think we're pretty good at a few things, but I think now that we have such an amazing team, it's allowed us to grow. And Jeb specifically, although you're obviously an incredible artist, especially if I'm saying the right medium, but pen to paper,
Right.
Allowing you to now, I mean, you now have McKenna and Hillary and Fred and other artists underneath you that allows you to rise up and truly be a director. How's that experience been for you, having those that can help work with you?
It's been great. I mean, it's fun to just have people to bounce ideas off of. You know, in the early days, it was always me, and I kind of felt a lot of pressure of like, I've got to come up with this design. I've got to do this. But when you can sit down and talk with or email or chat with your design group, you can kind of get some different ideas. They may look at something a little bit different than, you know, through a different lens than I would, and it kind of, you know, spurs on different ideas. Or they might come up with something and I may just add a finishing touch to it. Or I may come up with something and it's not quite there, and then they may see something that I didn't see and they add something to it. So it's been great just to have that camaraderie and kind of like a team of people, you know, with more sets of eyes on the design itself. So definitely a good deal.
And I feel it too, for me on the marketing and business operations side, is the one person that's probably been the biggest saving grace to me, no offense, all right,
No.
Sharon,
No.
is Audrey.
Yeah.
Audrey is my sister-in-law, Hillary's sister, but she's been with us almost since day one, and she's the first one that came in and took over service, and she did a lot better job than what Jeb and I were doing, because Jeb and I would take it personal, like, you don't like this shirt?
Yeah.
Come on, like,
Yeah, right.
there's a hole in it. Well, sorry, you know, whatever it is, but she really came in and it was a master of problem solving, but then developed the system that then you, Sharon, could step in and take over because she built that system. And it allowed Jeb to design, me to do marketing and lead. It allowed her to run those operations and oversee inventory. And then also on the social media marketing side with Katie, for her to come in and every single day there's a post going on social media and it's strategic with a purpose or interacting with different people that we're advertising with or doing sponsorships with. So now I feel like our team has finally got to a point that we have a human that's not Jeb or myself overseeing each aspect of our business, which allows us to bring more focus to each individual part and do such a better job of managing. And I feel like, yes, we have great designs. Yes, I feel like we have great branding and marketing, but our company would not be where it's at if it wasn't for the team that we have in place. And I think I can speak for Jeb, but pretty thankful for who we got.
Oh, yeah. I remember the days where we were like trying to just figure out what we always felt like, what are we going to do on Instagram today? We've got to post a picture. What are we going to do? And we're like, I don't know. Do you have an idea? No. We're like, well, I got one of our hats on. Maybe I'll just go in the backyard and put it on the patio and take a picture of it. Okay, that works. Put a filter. So it's been really nice, like having people that kind of are managing those things that not necessarily that we didn't like to do, but it was just like something that we needed to do, but maybe we just hadn't planned for it, or we had other things on our plate. So we're super thankful for our team and just the growth that we've had and just everybody's role and how it's all played out so far. And I'm sure throughout this podcast, you know, as we go throughout the series or whatever, we'll be talking a lot more in depth about some of that kind of stuff as well. But
yeah. I'm sure you guys have learned a few lessons over the last 11 years, right? Like, even just that learning maybe when you start to feel the growing pains of when you need to add someone new on and delegate some things, or even just learning to invest in a good tent for events that you don't have to throw away at the end of the night.
Yeah. Money well spent.
I think that's something too that a lot of people want to learn from others' mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe just others' experiences. So any other kind of life lessons that you feel like would be helpful for maybe our listeners to hear about?
Well, I think some points in this podcast, we could have so many other podcasts based off each individual point we've talked about. And I think we need to have a podcast just on lessons learned. But I think for me, one of the biggest lessons I learned is at the beginning is the need for systems. Because since day one, when we were first on Etsy and then we moved over to Shopify to sell online, there's just an immense amount of data and information you gather. But data and information is only as good as how you use it. And I just remember years fast forward, we had to go back and try to gather all that information, like maybe emails, and then we started our email campaign, or accounting, knowing, we made X amount of dollars on hats versus shirts, rather than looking at the overall picture of we sold X amount of dollars worth. Because all that information was valuable. And for instance, as an example, once we were able to collect all those emails, we started doing email campaigns, and our sales just dramatically went up because we were able to retarget people that we had reached all those years previous. And I just look back and think if we would have been doing that since day one, we could have had a better connection to those people that were shopping our brand. Or accounting, inventory management. There's just so much data and information that goes through. So just developing systems from the get-go and collecting that information and then using the information to make wise decisions and choices.
Yeah. Of course, Brian talks about all the business side of it, and all that stuff is super important because that's not the way my brain worked early on. I see it all now, but back then not as much. But I guess some of the things that I learned early on were just kind of like we had to learn the apparel business.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know anything about screen printing, any of that kind of stuff. So we started learning like what garments were good, because early on we were kind of like looking for like just a cheap shirt. What's the cheapest shirt that feels kind of soft, and so we kind of cut some corners early on thinking that we were going to save money, but we realized, hey, you need to you need to find a good garment, for one, because otherwise you are going to have a lot of customer service issues because there's going to be rips and, seams are going to tear. And then we started learning about screen printing, about, the inks and the layering and texturing. And so I think we learned a ton just in the first couple of years, just about the business itself, about when we got into wholesale, like what the Keystone model is, how you price things. Relationships with people, so there's certain relationships that we may have gotten into or people that we met along the way that, they always had some sort of motive, and so we had to, you kind of have to trust your gut and find people that are really wanting to work with you for you and not take advantage of you. So, like Brian said, we could probably go into a whole couple episodes on things that we've learned, but those are some of the early things I know that we definitely learned, really quick.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to what we discussed a little bit ago is the team. I kind of wish we would have added more people to our team earlier on versus running myself or ourselves into the ground.
Yeah.
I've lost a few hairs since we started this company and when I had my first child, I guess. But just the need for human help, support has been great. And not only our own employees and team members like yourself, but even those that we contract out to. One gentleman, Scott, has been just a significant help to us. He helps us problem solve things that we don't think about, or our mind doesn't think that way. He's such an engineering-minded person, and basically it's so important as a business person to find a mentor that can help you, but also just people that will speak into your life with the best of intentions for your company. And I think Jeb and I both can say this is finding that very tight-knit small circle of humans that are willing to help support you and be honest with you. Whereas I think at the beginning, we both kind of just trusted everyone and went with the flow, just assumed everyone was out for our best interests. And that definitely wasn't the case. And that sounds really negative, like, man, you can't trust a lot of people. But on the flip side, it makes you appreciate those that are loyal and so supportive. And so just find that tight-knitted group of people that you can really trust to rely on.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess another thing I just thought of when you were talking about that, one thing we learned is that we didn't want to do our own fulfillment.
Yeah.
After we kind of started getting a lot of sales, I think we did like a Labor Day sale once, and like, I don't know, Brian got into his marketing genius, and he sent out, it was a great campaign, and we were like, and it hit spot on, and we had so many T-shirt sales, but like I had half the inventory at my house in my office. He had half the inventory in his garage at his house. And I think we met at my house. He just brought all his boxes. I brought all my boxes. We were like in my kitchen, just like separating orders, like printing out stuff, bagging things. And we took it all like we just packed the cars up and took them to the post office. And we're like, okay, this is like our whole weekend was taken up with, packing shirts. We found out real quick we don't want to do that. So luckily we were able to convince our printers early on, like, hey, could you guys maybe figure out a way to ship this stuff out for us? Because this is taking way too long.
And if you're one of those that received one of those packages, it might have had some dog hair on the tape something from our house that a little piece of ourselves to you. So, but yeah, that was horrible.
Well, the good old days. But that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. You learn from that stuff. And as you grow, you just have to kind of figure out some new solutions and be willing to sometimes spend some money to help you grow. I think early on we were kind of like, that seems like a lot of money. I don't know if we can spend that much on the upgrade on the website or whatever it might be. And then like every time we've done that, every time we put money into to that, it's always paid off. Because it takes work off of our shoulders, and it's in the long run it ends up benefiting us.
Yeah,
I totally agree. Having vision, but then taking next steps on it, taking action. But I think there's also one other thing that Jeb and I have mentioned on interviews that we've been on or different podcasts that is very true is there is a need to strategize. There's a need to plan. There's a need to be very thorough. But I think one of the number one things that businesses struggle with is from the get-go is just stepping out and getting it, just doing it. And there's many businesses that try to make it perfect and then they never launch. But whereas Jeb and I, it's better off to just get it out there. If you have an idea, start it, give it a shot, and then make it better, refine it as you go. People like seeing businesses and products get better. Whereas if you hit a home run on the first at bat,
pressure's on then.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing with Jeb and I, when we first got started, we just did it. Didn't think about it. Probably because we didn't have any hopes or aspirations to be 11 years later a big old business.
Yeah, it was low pressure.
And, 100%. And I know that's an answer that he gives many times on interviews, but it's just take a first step. Don't eat the elephant all at once, one bite at a time. And that's just a recommendation or encouragement we have to other business owners is if you have an idea, do it. Give it a shot. Low risk at the beginning. It's higher risk as you go. I don't know what's your thoughts on that.
No, those are great words of wisdom. Like you said, the perfection thing was one of the things that kind of, I don't know. I always felt like, well, I don't know if we should launch that. It's got to be, we need to make it perfect. But if you do that, you're always going to be nitpicking at things and you're never going to get it perfect. So it's always better just to, even if it's at 85%, 95%, then get it out there, tweak it from there. And then, then you can learn from those mistakes and grow that way.
I'm going to turn this on you for a second because you're hearing from us as the owners. Since you've been with Tumbleweed TexStyles, is there something that you've learned maybe about business, service, design, anything that kind of has changed your perspective on this career that you have right now?
Yeah, man, I think, Brian, you mentioned earlier Audrey, who is kind of my, I guess, direct boss in the sense of customer service and all of that. And you mentioned she just laid such a great foundation for the role that I was stepping into with customers. I think I have friends who often, I think when I took this job, were expecting like, man, you're probably not going to like to answer a lot of angry emails every day and all of that. And I wouldn't, right? Like no one wants to just, deal with angry people all day long. But our customers typically aren't like that. Like you said, we have very loyal customers who love our gear. And I think come in, even if something isn't quite right, they, at least for the most part, customers who have interacted with us before know that we will do everything we can to make it right. And so I think Tumbleweed as a whole just works really hard to do things with integrity and to do things the right way and to treat others how we want to be treated. And I think, whether it's at events when we're hot and you've been on your feet all day long and you still get to treat people with kindness and, you're still so grateful that they're buying a T-shirt from us, right? Yeah. Or if it's people emailing because, something's wrong with their order or anything like that. I think I've gotten to see just from working here, and again, the example that's been set for me and you guys and in people who have been on the team longer than me, is just doing things the right way. And it's never too hard to go the extra mile to do the right thing and to treat our customers, just as well as we can, I guess, regardless of the circumstances. So anyway, I love all that it's like, man, even in all of the lessons to be learned, there's hope in all of this. There's, you're still learning, and you've learned a few things, I would guess, over the last 11 or so years. Yeah. But man,
that's a good message. Yeah, for sure.
And you guys are still such teachers, I love that. I'm like, I'm always still learning. Brian, you're not a teacher officially anymore, but just everything you guys have said it's teaching me, teaching our listeners, hopefully, of, I don't know, just it's okay to try, and maybe you have a couple failures along the way, but you're trying.
That's what we hope with this podcast as we move forward and we break down subjects a little bit more in a micro way when we talk about barbecue, Texas music, and all things Texas. But specifically, I'm most excited about the opportunity to educate listeners, all of you that are out there listening, about business, art, design, and specifically from the lessons that we've learned over the course of 11 years.
Yeah, man, this is like our second episode. Like, we've finished a second episode of a podcast.
I know.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, there's got to be some sort of statistic, like podcasts only make it so many episodes. We've got to be on our way to longevity.
We just got to make sure we go live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to publish these still.
Yeah. So if you've heard this, you can like and leave a review and 5 stars and all those things. So, well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. That was
we'll
fun.
be back next week.
Okay.
Thanks. We appreciate it.
See y'all.